think the belief that most mentally ill are violent comes a lot from exposure we get in the media to major dramatic violent events, and then in looking backwards, most people say, well, that person must be out of their mind, or they must have a mental health problem, or they must have a disorder. Violence takes in a wide range of behaviors. It takes in a wide set of possible things. It can be everything from rampage killings, which are qualitatively different. Most violence is between individuals who know each other, live with each other, family members. The major shift in thinking about the relationship between violence and mental illness is the awareness that a mental disorder alone is not related to likely violence. A mental disorder with a substance use disorder does put somebody at increased risk for involvement in violence. The studies that show a relationship between mental health problems and violence are usually ones that are done in an epidemiological fashion, going door to door, and you see an association. But when you compare individuals who have mental disorders with their neighbors, you find that the people with mental disorders are no more likely than their neighbors to be involved in violent incidents. Oftentimes we say people with mental disorders are more violent than others in a particular area, and the question is, what's the community group you're comparing them to? Oftentimes people with mental disorders can end up in one section of a city where the neighborhood is very violence prone, and you might compare them to the whole metropolitan area that includes affluent suburbs and other areas, and you find this big disparity. And it's not really a disparity attributable to mental illness, it's a disparity attributable to the fact that they live in one type of neighborhood versus another type of neighborhood. And the implications for any shift in thinking about this relationship have to do with the necessity for clinicians to think about the conditions under which an individual is violent and not to rely simply on a diagnosis or a category. People are violent in social situations, and when assessing violence, the clinician has to think about what is likely to precipitate an incident of violence in this individual. Is it the drinking? Is it the person they're living with? What is it about their lives? So they've got to take their prior violence apart and not rely simply on it being a diagnostic feature. I think clinicians need to know that violence is oftentimes more common than they might realize in individuals' lives, and that talking to a patient about it is not going to precipitate an incident. They really kind of have to explore it with an individual the same way they'd explore a lot of other troublesome behaviors in the person's life. Not to believe it's always related to psychiatric deterioration, and start to think about ways to manage it. What sorts of things can they move forward in that person's life that'll try to keep that under control?